How's living in Vietnam different than living in South Africa? What challenges have you faced as a South African here in Vietnam?
Hi everyone, I'm Sky. In this video, I'm going to chat with a few South Africans about their experiences living in Vietnam. Also today, I'm launching my YouTube memberships where members can have early access, member shoutouts, and exclusive videos, and much more. If you'd like to become a member, hit the join button down below to support my channel. If you want to see more interviews of locals and foreigners in Vietnam, hit the subscribe button, and until then, let's get started.
Here, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shaz, but my real name is Shiraz, but people call me Shaz, and I'm from South Africa. I'm from a place called Cape Town, which is the southwesternmost point on the country.
How long have you been in Vietnam for?
I've been living in Vietnam for almost 7 years now. In January, I will have been here for 7 years.
Hi, my name is Rebecca. I live in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I've lived here for 4 years. I'm from South Africa. I'm actually from 3 different places. So I was born in a small little town called Grabo, which is just outside of Gordons Bay. And then I moved to Gordons Bay, and then from Gordons Bay, I moved to Port Elizabeth, where I lived most of my childhood and my adulthood. And now I'm here in Ho Chi Minh City.
My name is William. I'm a personal trainer living in Vietnam. I've been here 5 years now. Well, actually now 3 years in Ho Chi Minh, the 2 before in Dalat.
Oh, Dalat!
So I came first to Ho Chi Minh and then moved to Dalat, back to Ho Chi Minh and back to Dalat and then returned.
Which do you prefer?
I like them both for different reasons. Dalat's quiet, it's beautiful, there's a lot of nature. Ho Chi Minh, a lot of opportunity, hustle bustle. There's pros and cons to both.
So where are you from?
I'm from South Africa,
Whereabouts?
Cape Town.
Can you speak Afrikaans or any other South African language?
I can speak a little bit of Afrikaans, yes. Ons kan saam praat as jy Duits praat, dan ons kan saam verstaan. So that means if you speak Dutch, we can speak together and understand each other. So Afrikaans is old school Dutch. Our Afrikaans is like Dutch 100 years ago. We obviously speak English, there's Xhosa, there's Zulu, quite a few different languages. It was funny, I met a grandpa, an old Dutch man here in Vietnam. I could hear him speaking Dutch and we just started speaking together. I couldn't believe it. He was hearing Dutch he hadn't heard in years. It's quite funny.
Ik kan Afrikaans praat, maar ik kan niet eindelijk baie lekker Afrikaans praat nie. That was Afrikaans.
What did you say?
I said, I can speak Afrikaans, but I can't speak it very well.
I know South Africa, they have 10 languages.
11, I believe.
11?
Yeah. I can name a couple, I don't know all of them. There's English, of course, Afrikaans, Xhosa, Zulu, Sepedi, Tswana. Sign language is also one of the official languages in South Africa.
I didn't know sign language was an official language.
Sign language became an official language not too long ago. It makes sense because it's pretty much an important language universally.
My naam is Rebecca. Ek is 27 jaar oud en ek kom van Suid-Afrika. My Afrikaans is baie kak, beloof my, maar ek kan dit praat. I said my Afrikaans is shit, but it's okay, I can speak it.
What's Cape Town like? What was it like growing up there?
Growing up in Cape Town is pretty cool. It's very diverse. If I were to compare to a place, Saigon would actually be one of the places I would compare to, just because of the diversity of the people that are in Saigon. Black people, white people, Chinese people, Malaysian people. It's a very, very big melting pot of people. A very, very beautiful city. I enjoyed it very much, especially due to my location. I was born and raised in a place called Woodstock, not to be mistaken with Woodstock in the States. But I was basically, my house was on the foot of the mountain. Like, the mountain was literally 5 minutes walk from where I lived, and the ocean was a 10-minute walk away from where I lived, and the forest was a 20-minute walk from where I lived, and the city was a 20-minute walk from where I lived. Basically, everything that you would want was in the city where I grew up.
That sounds like a dream. My dream.
Yeah.
What's South Africa like? What was it like growing up there?
Well, I must say it was really great for me. I used to play in the streets until really late with all of my friends. And when the street lights used to come on, that was the time to like go home. I wouldn't say that I grew up with a lot of money, but then my dad kind of got a better job when I was in high school. So I was able to go to like all private school. Yeah, I even had like a car and everything, but that didn't last very long. It's difficult to get these big contracts now in African countries where my dad was working. He used to work in Mozambique actually for a mine. He was the supervisor on the site but you know, he's a little bit old now, so he doesn't do any of that anymore, and the country's kind of gone way downhill compared to when I was growing up. So I feel sorry for the kids today, like no playing in the street or anything. I feel sorry for them, but I must say I had a really good childhood in South Africa.
Why can't the kids play in the streets now like they did back in the day?
It's just too dangerous. Like, you need someone out there with them at all times, and I think even then most parents would not let their kids out riding bike anymore like I grew up. One of my friends has just come back from South Africa now, and him as a man, he would not go walk anywhere by himself. He's also too scared.
Why is it so dangerous? Like, what happens?
You know, it's just due to the poverty rate and the unemployment rate and the low education. So, I mean, what choice do some of these people have? You know, some of them just steal even from their friends. I had a friend whose mother stole thousands, like pretending to be a lawyer. I mean, like, it's anyone and everyone trying to make like a quick buck, basically. Some people are like that.
Can you tell us more about your nice city of Cape Town?
Cape Town's beautiful. It's got Table Mountain right in the center of the city. You've got the mountain, you've got nature in the city, and it's on the coastline, so you've got everything right there in one city. South Africa, it's the most active, free lifestyle I think there is anywhere in the world. Amazing childhood, lots of outdoors, spending time at the beach, hiking up the mountain. Very sporty culture.
What kind of sports?
All sports, rugby of course. Rugby's the biggest sport in South Africa. I played water polo and rugby, but our biggest sports would be cricket, rugby, and I'm definitely forgetting one right now. I don't know. I can just think of cricket and rugby right now.
Why did you move to Vietnam from South Africa?
I came with an ex, so that was like the main push to get me out, but I think that was the best thing. Even if it didn't work out, that was the best thing, because now I'm here and now I've got my life here, and Vietnam is pretty popular for South Africans to come to. It's friendly and we're not really discriminated against for our passport. I think we're treated really nicely here, and we're treated nicely in other places, but I just mean sometimes they really care about your passport. Just going to the UK, I also have to go through all the procedure a lot of my friends here in Vietnam have to go through, where I need to actually go have a meeting and say, hi, I'm Rebecca, I would like to go visit the UK. I have to submit so many documents to go to the UK, a stack like this, print it all out, take it to the embassy, have my meeting. I don't know why I need to print it. Take it there, have a meeting, and you know that they can reject me for no reason. I've never been rejected for any visa, but they just could, for example. It's a super tedious process to get any type of visa for America, Europe and stuff. Like, I have to go in for a meeting and say my full name, date of birth into like a little camera in the corner. They review the footage, make sure that I'm a legal person and I am who I am, even though my grandfather and grandmother are British. Like, I have their British passports. I understand it's such a tedious process, but here in Vietnam it's like open for anyone to come. Like, it doesn't matter what country you come from, you go through the same work requirements. If they're very laid back here. So I think that's also why a lot of South Africans gravitate towards Southeast Asia, not just Vietnam.
You were living in China?
Yeah, I lived in China for about 3 years. That was my second away from home experience.
So why did you move to China from South Africa?
Basically, I had reached what I felt was the ceiling of where I was working, and I needed a change. I felt like I was stagnating and I needed something different just to kind of remotivate me. So ESL was on the rise. The profession was becoming quite popular in South Africa, as in taking you out of South Africa. So I was like, okay, cool, let's apply for a couple of jobs. And I won't lie, I applied for most countries around the world, but China was the one that said, come to us, here's a job. Packed my bags, went to China, and I was there for 3 years.
And then what made you move from China to Vietnam?
I visited Vietnam during the Lunar New Year, and it was amazing. It was something that just made me feel like this was my next home. And it was just very clear that I needed to move. Because for me, China had become a little bit too restricting to a certain degree. You end up doing the same things over and over very quickly. So I needed a change again. When I went back to China after being here for the Tet holiday, I just told my boss, I'm not going to re-sign my contract. You have me for the next couple of months, but after that, I really need to spread my wings and move on. 3 years was enough in China, and then I moved to Vietnam.
So I moved to Vietnam from South Africa 5 years ago, and I'd heard a lot of great things about Vietnam. So lots of family friends had came and they all had good things to say. I hadn't been to Asia, so I thought I'd come over and just travel here briefly, and it's turned into 5 years.
How's living in Vietnam different than living in South Africa?
Well, there's pros and cons. The major con is I don't have my family here. I don't have that support system. I don't have that safety net. So if I do mess up in a certain way, I don't have that safety, which is a little bit tough at times, but it's also very uplifting because it really forces you to get your things together. You need to have your act together because there's nobody that can save you immediately. You can still get some support from back at home, but it's not as easy as just, Mom, can I come home? I am struggling with something. So it's a little bit tougher. In terms of the lifestyle, I'm definitely living a lifestyle here that I wouldn't be able to live back in South Africa based on the previous job that I was doing. And the reason for that is, although Cape Town, South Africa is a beautiful place, the cost of living is quite high. So it's a little bit tough to live a certain way if you are not earning a massive salary in South Africa. The salaries just don't cater to very crazy lifestyle. It's very easy to live in South Africa, don't get me wrong, but based on the lifestyle I'm living over here, I wouldn't be able to unless I had quite a high-paying job.
Maybe some people would enjoy the lifestyle in South Africa. I personally don't want burglar bars on everything and electric fencing just to feel safe. I'm so happy that I can just come with you outside. We're in the main district and we're on the public road and we can go out and film and we don't have to look over our shoulder all the time for people coming to rob us. Yeah, I don't think people understand, it's safe to if you know where you're going and you're going from A to B, but when you want to do something outside of that bubble, like photography where you have no protection of a car or something, it's not that safe to do. And in all the beautiful historical places where you would want to go and film a video like we're doing right now, and these cute little coffee shops, you have to be so careful taking your equipment.
Vietnam is very fast moving and hustle bustle, big city, just Ho Chi Minh, not much nature. Where South Africa is more slow paced, you'll have maybe one car drive by your home every few hours. It's definitely not the same here. That's, I'd say, the biggest difference. Opportunity-wise, in Vietnam, I think it's huge. There's a lot of businesses. You say you leave for 6 months and you come back, your neighborhood's going to be very different. There'll be different shops, different businesses. Everything's always growing and moving here.
There's more of a startup culture here.
Absolutely. Everyone has a little business if it's selling something on the street. South Africa is similar, but I think like most Western countries, there's more of a barrier to entry, more capital involved, that kind of thing.
Any challenges or difficulties you face as a South African in Vietnam?
So I'm in the ESL field, and South Africa has somewhat been demoted off of the list of native English speakers over the past few years. Although we are a native English speaking country, we mentioned that South Africa does have a crazy amount of languages, national official languages.
Sorry, they're so diverse over there. Oh my gosh.
So even though English is my first language, along with many people in South Africa has become known as a non-native English-speaking country. So in terms of finding work in Vietnam, it's become a little bit harder. Not impossible. All you need to do is just do a specific test to prove your language level. It's just an extra hurdle to jump over. Most people speak 2 or sometimes 3 languages in South Africa because you have to learn 2 languages in any school that you go to in South Africa. So I speak English and Afrikaans, Afrikaans being my second language.
To be honest, nothing really. I don't think that there's anything that I couldn't get by or just change my approach or something like that. So I don't think that there's many challenges. Even dealing with the government work here is fine because it's the same as South Africa where it's not funded as much, but the people just make it so much better here. I was explaining to my aunt who was speaking about the government hospital and how people will steal your phone and steal your belongings and stuff. They just make the process being there so terrible and long, they drag it out. And in Vietnam, they're just try and do everything and get everything done. Obviously, I don't know what's really going on behind the scenes in South Africa, but just face-to-face interactions here, it's so much different. And I prefer Vietnam. I just love Vietnam.
So I think paperwork, everyone who comes to Vietnam struggles with some paperwork. When you first come over, you have to have a job. There's different ways to get your paperwork, but there's always is a way.
How has paperwork been a challenge?
Yes, there's lots of hidden costs. There's some, maybe a little bit more money goes here and there than it would elsewhere. There's always going to be an extra cost and a little bit of a time to wait before you get your paperwork.
What kind of hidden costs? You have to bribe somebody to get your paperwork?
Potentially, yes, which we maybe don't know about, but there's a visa agent, there's someone who works through this person, and which is quite nice actually, because there's always a little loophole to get through. I think as a South African or anywhere outside of Australia, UK, Europe, that kind of thing, we have a different passport. Paperwork can be more challenging for us. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but there's just more steps in the process. So then I think another challenge is it depends on where you live. For me, living in the big city, I love nature. I like to slow down and have that time away from the big city. So that takes some adjusting too. I think you have to consciously take time to slow down and work on adjusting to the fast pace.
What are some South African slangs?
If I'm going to give you the South African slang, you're going to have to bleep them all out.
Do you know any nice ones first?
Lekker means really nice. You can kind of use it with everything, like, how are you doing? I'm lekker. How was the food? Oh, it was lekker. Oh, you're going to the beach next week? Lekker, man. So that's really the one. A very old school one is duidelik, which means cool. If people ask you, how are you doing? I'm duidelik. Like, I'm cool, I'm chilled.
Yeah. Well, what about the ones that needs to be bleeped out?
There's a very common one. I need to give a little bit of backstory on this. So there's lots of stray dogs in South Africa. In each country that you go to, the dogs will respond to the language that they know. A very common phrase is voetsek, which means like fuck off or like go away. Sure. In a very aggressive tone. So that was one of the things, like my mom used to joke when I was about to leave home and move over to Asia. She said, learn how to say voetsek in the language of the city you are in so that the dogs know to get away from you.
That's actually really good advice.
The dogs in South Africa are a bit more aggressive, and I found them to be in China and Vietnam.
Babalas. What do you think that means? Babalas. Can you say it for me?
Babalas. Makes me want to drum. Go drumming.
It's like hungover when you feel babalas the next day. I can teach you some swear words.
Teach us some bad words in Afrikaans.
Okay. Boos is a big one.
What does that mean?
C-U-N-T. Yeah. It's a big bad one. Like my aunt gets upset when I use it, but now because I live abroad, I use it. Even my Vietnamese friends are saying it.
Boos?
Boos.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a boos.
Tell us one more swear word.
Nai. You're dumb nai. I don't even know what it is. There's no English word for it. Nai is also an ugly way to say have sex.
How's it? How's it is like hello, how are you? Shortened. But you won't answer it with I'm good. You'll just say, how's it? How's it? It's like saying hello in a more cool, a younger way. And then the third you have to know is puss.
Okay. Tell us more.
What do you think puss means?
Don't ask me.
Okay.
What do you think? Write it down in the comments.
Puss is a very, and you can kind of tell by the way you hear it. You don't just say it softly, you say it with some energy. There's a famous saying in South Africa, which I'll let you guys translate in the comments, which means yo massa puss. Puss is a word for pussy, but you say it in an insulting way. So, your puss, it means basically like fuck you.
Is there a South African place you recommend where one can experience South African culture?
There were a few places that were running. I can't remember them that much because I'll admit, myself, I don't really go out looking for South African food. Because if I want South African food, I'll just make food at home. Because I like to cook. Sure. If I feel like a South African meal, I'll make one. Steak and meat. Steak and potatoes, sorry. That's our staple. But there were a few places, and I know the one place was called Carnivore, but I think they closed recently. And then there's another place called Lekker. And there was a guy by the name of Nathan who was selling really good biltong and South African products. But he has since left Vietnam. I think he came back recently. But on that note, I myself make a South African product that I do sell here in Vietnam. And it's cured meat. It's called biltong. I don't know if you know of it.
I think my other South African friend mentioned it. Is it like a better version of beef jerky?
Yes. And I'm going to get a lot of hate from people who prefer beef jerky.
You've never tried biltong, but just you wait.
Essentially, it's just dried cured meat with a specific spice that we use on it.
And how can one contact you if they want to place an order?
Facebook or Instagram.
I'll link it down below if you're curious.
Thank you.
I gotta support small business.
Find a South African friend. On Facebook, they have Hannah Banana, which is a biltong place, and they sell all like boerewors, all kinds of things like that. That's where you can find the meat. You're not gonna find like a place to go and there's like just South Africans there. Like, to be honest, you'll meet some South Africans and then you'll see where they hang out and then you'll find all of them hanging out somewhere over there.
Also, order some biltong. You have to. Have you tried biltong?
What is that? Biltong?
Biltong. It's like jerky, but just 100 times better.
How is it 100 times better than jerky?
It's got a different taste. I don't know. Jerky, am I right? It's orange-red color. I find it quite sweet, whereas biltong it's just It's peppery, salty, dried beef, or you have some wild game that they make into dried meat. It's the best. You can also order it online on one of these Facebook groups.
What is the biggest lesson you learned as a South African in Vietnam?
I've learned that South Africa's actually given me a bit of a tough skin, which is vital to have when you want to become just a successful human being. You really need to be okay with being told no. You really need to know when to move on, and you really need to know how to take a no to make you better, so that the next person you speak to is a yes. So these are things that I think that I've learned in South Africa, because South Africa is quite a tough place to grow up, especially during the time that I grew up. I wasn't afforded all the opportunities because I grew up during the apartheid years. It's quite a tough place to grow up in, but it's really given me a thick skin. So I'm really grateful for all of the things that I was afforded through my upbringing.
May I ask, what is the departed years you're talking about?
Apartheid, it was a time in history where segregation was the way of the world. So blacks were with blacks, browns were with browns, and whites were with whites. That ended in 94. Sorry, my history dates are a little bit bad. So I was around for about 8 to 9 years of that.
I'm learning some South African history here.
History.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's gonna be a little cliche, but it's literally just to believe in myself and like to see how I'm in another country. I didn't know the language so well, but like, hey, like I'm still here and I'm doing really well for myself. It just showed me like, oh, it's not such a big deal. Like, I can definitely do this. Like, I can do a lot of things. That's really pushed me and made me believe in myself. And now everything that I'm working towards is coming to me. That's like the biggest lesson I had to learn.
I think that South Africa is a beautiful place and there's still opportunity in South Africa, but I think coming to Vietnam shows me that there's different places, different markets that work in different ways. And I think that there's opportunity everywhere. And interestingly enough, maybe before I left South Africa, I didn't think there was much opportunity, but having come here, been in this environment of growth, and seeing all this opportunity around me, I think it helped shape my mindset to then when I visit South Africa, I can see more opportunity there. So I think it's this growth, being surrounded by growth has helped my mindset shift.
How has being here like opened your eyes to like more opportunities? Like there's more diversity or?
It's just the economy is booming. The population is growing.
Any advice or messages you have for South Africans considering coming to Vietnam?
Just be ready to have your world rocked. If you are leaving home for the first time, culture shock is a real thing. But all you need to do is push through 3 months. After the 3rd month, you really feel better about life. Find people who are good for you. This is a very difficult thing to achieve because people might seem good for you, but they really aren't. So find your tribe and support each other because they are the people who are going to help you become a better version of yourself. And dive into your hobbies. Dive into your hobbies so that you don't need to go out looking for things to fill the void. So dive into yourself, dive into your hobbies, find something that you like to do and really work on those things, make them better.
If you're coming to work, then make sure you legalize all your documents in South Africa because it's going to be a pain over here. It's just going to be very expensive. It can be done. If you got the money, sure. Doesn't matter, but it's going to be very expensive. Just do it in SA. If you're coming here on holiday, this is somewhere South Africans don't really come on holiday. They normally just come to work here, you know? Like if you come here on holiday, I really recommend Phu Quoc, Ha Long Bay, Da Nang, Hoi An, Nha Trang, obviously Saigon, and yeah, Hanoi.
Do it. Come on over. Try connect with people before you do. If you have someone who has experience moving to Vietnam, it's going to save you a lot of hassles with the paperwork, with costs, with maybe finding an affordable apartment. There's plenty options, but when you come in new, I'm sure you've experienced it. It's tough to find something that's a fair deal. So connect with someone, join these Facebook groups before you come over, ask some questions, and do it. Go for it.
If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. What did you think? If you have enjoyed my content and want to help support my channel, you can join my YouTube memberships. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And until then, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.